high-profile negligent fraudster and former Audi chairman, CEO and chief financial officer, Rupert Stadler, has finally come clean and spilt the beans regarding his filthy criminal role in Volkswagen's wide-ranging, planet-poisoning scam, otherwise known as Dieselgate. And it's taken only 8 years. Take that, integrity. I'm John Cadogan from AutoExpert.com.au and I get new cars cheap. I do, but Australia only. Website. Card. Red-faced Rupee, the fraudmeister, as he was never known prior to his arrest in June of 2018 and subsequent incarceration in the German big house at Augsburg for the next 4 months, has finally kissed and made up with German prosecutors. No tongue was exchanged, however, according to insiders. This report is sponsored by NordVPN. The internet is so useful, of course, but also a bit risky. You use it every day, so you've got to protect yourself from cyber criminals, scammers, and hackers. NordVPN is a great way to do that. It's simple and effective. You just subscribe, you download the app, and you connect. 1 click later, you are better protected. Your IP address is shielded from scammers and your online traffic is masked with state-of-the-art encryption across as many as 6 devices. That's especially useful if you don't want anyone else, including your ISP, your employer, or even the government, looking over your shoulder while you're online. You don't want your employer watching you applying for a job at a competitor, for example. That could get awkward. Go to nordvpn.com/AEJC right now and you'll get a huge discount plus up to 4 additional months free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/AEJC. I'll put a link in the description. NordVPN is the fastest VPN on Earth and it costs only about as much as a cup of coffee every month to keep your data, your identity and your devices secure. Because your location is masked, you'll be able to access streaming and other services that might be geo-blocked where you live, plus you can continue to watch your favourite content when you travel overseas. All up, it's a pretty small price to pay for enhanced cybersecurity and greater access to this and that online. Go to nordvpn.com/AEJC now to get more secure and enjoy a juicy discount plus those extra months of free subscription time. It's totally risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/AEJC, link in the description, and thanks to Nord for sponsoring this episode. Back to fraudulent Super Rupee now, being arrested and thrust into the slammer. June of 2018. So impossibly joyous and uplifting, that news. I did riff air guitar with no pants on the boss's desk at the time. She was out. But you've got to ask yourself, how would you have coped in that situation? Like, imagine going from daily manicures and sundry other grooming by high-class Hilda, dining on those little pig's trotter and sauerkraut sandwiches with the crusts cut off, washing it all down with a magnum of Veuve Clicquot, like from that and related opulence to sharing the bottom bunk with German Bubba in maximum security at Arsfag. Very different domestic situations, like cheese and chalk, dude. A bit like business class, isn't it, really, when you think about it? It's so easy to go forwards from economy, but quite confronting going the other way. 4 fat people across all the way to Dubai. I was shocked when I learned that people actually did that. I wrote sternly to the UNHCR at the time. German legal bigwigs had, of course, been toing and froing the Super Rupee fraud problem for the past 3 years or so. Super Rupee ultimately agreed to admit the minimum required detail of his breathtakingly negligent, fraudulent, criminal, felonious scumbaggery last week in exchange for a suspended sentence. But there was a catch. Actually, there were 1.1 million catches, all of them in euros, which is a hell of a fine if you're unemployed, which Super Rupee presently is. That's roughly 1.2 million greenbacks in real money, or 1.8 million Schittsvillian micropesos. Our plastic currency is, of course, quite attractive, albeit problematically worthless. Don't be surprised, however, if Super Rupee ultimately relocates to Australia. Perhaps he'll buy a caravan with whatever modest cash he has left over. There's always a new dream to be lived down under, and people don't judge. He'll fit right in anyway, I'd suggest, being a convict. Personally, I remain unconvinced that caravanning is a dream. It seems more of a nightmare involving endless decantation of fermenting effluent and scrambling the eggs before setting off each morning while simultaneously sitting on the crapper, percolating. All of a sudden, the bottom bunk at Arsfarg doesn't seem quite so inhumane, does it? Of course, Super Rupee spent the early part of the 3-year trial going more or less 100% Sergeant Schultz on his role in the whole smoggy affair, while prosecutors accused him of tampering with evidence and being much, much more aware of things than not at all, etc. Audi, of course, rapidly slammed the door behind Super Rupee. They changed the locks immediately upon his departure and pretended he no longer existed way back on, I think it was October the 2nd of 2018, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, that behaviour was typical of them. Rupee who, they said in an official statement at the time. We have no knowledge of anybody by that name in the boardroom or anywhere else on the premises. Hashtag solidarity. The guilty plea last week makes fraudulent red-faced Rupee the highest-ranking Volkswagen to admit his appalling misdeeds thus far. In a formal statement, Super Rupee said, "I ain't spending my life here. I ain't living alone. Ain't breaking no rocks on the chain gang. I'm fessing up and heading home." The carrot in this deal, and I won't point out exactly where that went, this being an intellectually highbrow family show and all. The carrot is Super Rupee's suspended sentence. Arguing the toss any further would almost certainly have resulted in a custodial sentence a couple of years back in the bottom bunk. Nobody wanted that, except, of course, Chairman Bubba. Looking at this pragmatically, therefore, high-class Hilda does make mighty fine pig's trotter sandwiches, and there's nothing quite like facing a new day, freshly manicured and otherwise perfectly polished. It is so difficult, dude, to go back to economy. All up it seems it was a pretty tense couple of weeks down at the former CEOs with no future prospects office. Heartbeats, they were racing. Freedom, he was chasing. Spotlights, sirens, rifles firing. Disappointingly, it never came to that. I did hope. I also hoped against hope that he would abscond in a musical instrument box. Wouldn't be the first time, would it? But he made it out with a bullet in his bank account. Super Rupee could probably score a pretty cushy consulting job down under at PricewaterhouseCoopers. He is fully credentialed, dude, for PwC. Philosophically, they are as one. 1.8 million micro pesos, it doesn't seem like a terrible deal when you view it through the prism of pragmatism. Super Rupee is free today, convicted but polished, and at liberty to run a manicured mousing hand over all the caravan websites in Australia and dream the beard-smoking convict paradise grey nomad dream, perhaps. If I were your Prime Minister, I would grant his visa forthwith. Rupee at PwC, marriage made in heaven. Way to make Australia less shit. Not really. In this neck of the woods, however, Rupee would be just another convict among convicts and their descendants in a nation built on a proud foundation of bread-stealing scumbags, proudly forged in the fire of criminality. That's us. And girt by sea. Gert's not so hot with the sandwiches, of course. She's hardly Hilda. And I wouldn't let her loose on my fingernails, but hey, after a few beers with Narelle from next door, get the number of that bus. Good. I do hope one evening I find myself camped next to Super Rupee, deep in the busted-ass outback on the bank of Dingo Piss Creek. Perhaps he might like to come in and take a dump in my caravan's kitchen. It's the neighbourly thing. The outback way. Caravanning has an etiquette all its own, dude. Perhaps we could unbox Carlos Ghosn from a musical instrument case and make a tasty threesome of it. That came out somewhat differently than how I planned it would sound in my head.